Hi, I'm Dr. Terry Susan Fine, your host for the Civics Connection. We'll be talking about the Congressional Redistricting process, which can sometimes be a hot topic. Both of our guests today ran for and won re-election in districts that had been redrawn following the decennial census. Joining me are Republican Lou Frey, who represented Central Florida from 1969 to 1979, and Democrat Bob Clement, who represented Nashville and the greater Nashville region from 1988 to 2003. Congressman Frey, we'll start with you. When we're talking about redistricting, what are some of the problems that redistricting poses for Congress and the public?
Well, in the first place, it's a state-by-state deal, and the state legislators could care less about you want or what you think. What they're looking at a lot of times is to draw themselves a district that they can run for Congress, and so you go up and talk to them and they totally ignore you. So as a member of Congress, what you're hoping is that your district won't be too different than it was before. But when you're losing votes in a state, when the census shows you're losing, then you really have problems, because sometimes you end up with member versus members, like in our state of Florida we have. So it's a messy process. Usually, if it's done right, the party in power wins and gets more seats, and it's drawn unfairly in their advantage. But guess what? That was the Republicans. If the Democrats come in, they do the exact same thing, and it's happened year after year. And so as a member of Congress, while you're emotionally involved and would like to do something, you're really pretty much hamstrung unless you can control the state legislature.
And Congressman Clement, how would you respond to the same question?
I think Lou said it extremely well. We've both been through congressional redistricting and survived, and it is an ordeal, because it's the state legislature and the governor that draw those lines, and they could draw them more often than every 10 years, but normally that's the case, and we just went through it. And each member of Congress represents approximately 700,000 people. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, by having congressional districting, it hurts a lot of folk, and a lot of people feel disenfranchised, and a lot of people feel like their vote or voice is not important anymore because of how the lines are drawn.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Congressman Frey talked about was this notion of member against member, particularly in those states that are losing seats. Do you have any other particular experiences, either for yourself in your own home states or in other states, that you'd heard about, colleagues that you had in Congress? Congressman Frey?
Well, we're going through one right now in Florida, where we have a very new member of Congress, and John Micah, who's chairman of the Transportation Committee, and they may end up in the Florida redistricting, which is back in court, by the way. You get a plan, go back to court, and that really doesn't make a great deal of sense. You would think that the Republicans in the state legislature would have done more to protect either of the incumbents, because I think this race is going to be really close nationally. I think that a 2 or 3 or 4 vote switch can make a difference, and that's what reapportionment can do. Mm-hmm. The other thing that it does is present a problem in Florida, because you have a district that goes all over the state. We have one that starts in the north part of the state and goes down midway through the state. It's a minority district. And the problem that they're trying to do with these districts that are all square is you're hurting some minority seats that have been there for some time in Florida, and the Hispanic seats in the south, and certainly in the African American seats in the north part of the state, Bob.
Mm-hmm. And how about you? Yes.
Well, Dr. Frey, I'll never forget congressional redistricting, because we had a Democrat governor, Governor Ned Ray McWhorter. A lot of common sense and good judgment, and one of the Republican congressmen in East Tennessee, Upper East Tennessee, Northeast Tennessee, behind the scenes supported Governor McWhorter, the Democrat, in the governor's race. And so when congressional redistricting came up, some of the Democrats had ideas what they wanted, how the lines they wanted drawn. And finally, Governor McWhorter weighed in with the Democrat congressman. He says, "Boys, I'll tell you what we're going to do." Says, "I want Congressman Jimmy Quillen to have everything he wants down to the final precinct, then the rest of you can fight over it."
And he got it, right?
That's exactly how it was.
And he got it.
And he got it.
Yeah.
Now, thinking about that story that
Yeah.
you just told, who do you think should be responsible for redistricting? Should it be something in terms of state commissions, perhaps, Congress, the Supreme Court? Who do you think should be responsible for this process?
Well,
9 cardinals?
Well, we have democracy.
But I'm asking
And,
your opinion,
we,
yes.
In Tennessee, it's worked rather well.
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak for other states because every state has its problems and battles. In Tennessee, we were very fortunate. We had an open seat.
Mm-hmm.
So all the members, Democrat and Republican, really got what they wanted, and then whatever was left over, was the 9th congressional district. And so I don't see anything wrong with how we do it now, but what it bothering me, particularly the last 20 years, is the Democrat districts have become more Democrat, and the Republican districts more Republican. And so all you have to do is just please those few that support you and believe the way you do, and you could care less about what's in the best interest of the state or the nation or the world. And so it's become more petty and partisan and extreme. And that really bothers me about what we're doing with gerrymandering and drawing those districts. And we ought not to be cutting up county lines as much or running congressional districts down the interstate highway system. It should be community of interest, and it should be done in a way where you're not dividing up counties as stated, but we need to do it in a way that's not hazardous to the process and not discouraging people from voting and participating.
I'd say amen to that, but the problem is I've watched it now for, I guess, 4 times or something like that, and I really don't see it basically changing, and I would be shocked if the majority party in power doesn't do well. And your dad was governor a couple of times of your state. I imagine that he had some great stories to tell you about it, but I think it's just different names, same problem.
But in terms of that question, since it is the state legislature that's responsible, and Congressman Clement said that it's worked reasonably well in Tennessee, when you're talking about Florida, with your experience, do you think that perhaps state commissions or Congress or some other entity other than the state legislature might take on that responsibility and make the process better?
It could, but I would like to believe the state legislature would be responsible and work pretty hard at it. And again, I go back to, you can get 9 of the most nonpartisan people in the state, and when they get into reapportionment, politics would get into it. Politics is not going to go away, Terry. It is there. It doesn't destroy the whole system. It's a bump in the road. You'd rather have it differently, but I think there are other things you can work on that might be a little more susceptible to change.
Now, since you did run your second campaign in a redistricted district, redrawn district, excuse me, could you tell me how your district did change and how that might have affected your campaign strategy?
Well, see, mine was easy because I had run in a district. I'd gone on foot to 30,000 homes as a kid to get elected. I had 4 major counties in Florida. So when it came to redistricting, they just took part of my district away. But I still had the core of my district, and it didn't make a bit of difference to me in terms of which part of it I had. I picked the one that seemed to be more for me than others, but I couldn't lose in terms of that. Now that's a lot different though when you've got a district that is not too good, that you've got a left and you have to choose between. That becomes a real problem. And so you want to be in a state where you're growing and you have more districts. People can be more benign and during that process.
And I just wanted to correct myself. It was actually your third campaign that was redistricted, and I apologize for the error.
I'm shocked.
Now, Congressman Clement, how about you? How did your district change, and how did that impact your campaign strategy?
Well, my district changed very little. I represented Nashville, Tennessee, so I kept Nashville, Tennessee in a small rural county. So I had 2 counties where a lot of members had a lot more counties than I did. So I was very fortunate the area I had. So I had Country Music USA, and you know, that's sort of a special place. My congressional district started with a fellow by the name of Andrew Jackson, and then later Sam Houston, and then I'm number 38.
Okay, understood. Now, when we're talking about the politics of redistricting, separate and apart from party, what are the other goals of redistricting that you see?
Well, you know, when it comes to how many federal dollars you get, I mean, by having congressional redistricting.
Could you explain that some more, please?
Well, it's the allocation of federal dollars. I mean, that's big time important for a state and for a congressional district, and the makeup and the composition, and make sure that everyone is counted. And that's why, you know, when we go through that congressional redistricting, that we know exactly how many people you have in your congressional district. These days, what just happened, every congressman has about 700,000 people that they'll represent, and it has to stay within a range. If it doesn't, it sure gives opportunity for legal action and take it to the courts where gerrymandering goes too far, and that does happen. As a matter of fact, even in the state of Tennessee, in the state legislature, there's been legal action against the legislature in the state Senate and the state House, mostly state Senate really, about how the lines were drawn, but I don't think it's going to impact the congressional districts, which will remain the same. But we didn't lose any congressional districts. We stayed the same. We had 9 and we're going to keep 9.
Okay, and Congressman Frey, yes, I'm interested in, other than party, are there other political
Definitely.
reasons that redistricting is so important?
Well, it's important for the majority because you want to be able to deliver your state to the president in the presidential race. You also want to have the power that goes on every day in Washington. Actually, one of the fun things I had to do is when they closed the air base, SAC base in my area, I called President Nixon and he put me in charge of replacing it. And guess what? I got it for $1 for the county, for the city, which is still McCoy, where you fly in and out of. And frankly, it was the fact that among reapportionment, we had gained some strength, and Florida was a state now that could be won. And one of the ways we proved it is handling the reapportionment. So a lot of things that aren't maybe a direct impact of it, but it is important. But I go back to it, I'm not going to lose sleep over it, because no matter what I do, the state legislature is really going to basically do what they think is in the interest, hopefully of the state, but at least of the state legislature.
Now, Congressman Frey, how about your relations with your constituents? Did they change at all once your base changed that little bit because of the redistricting?
No, and they didn't, and a lot of them to this day still think I represent them. You know, it's really amazing. I mean, you work so hard to get known, and then when you're not there, they don't know you're gone. I'm not sure if it's good or bad, but the fact of it is in a district like Orlando that's such big and has so many areas, if somebody came to your office and needed some help, you wouldn't turn them down. I had 5 district offices, and we worked a lot with the people on the problems, Social Security, Medicare, the military, and whatever. So it was really just business as usual. We didn't try and impact another congressperson or something and that, but we certainly didn't turn work away.
And how about you, Congressman Clement? Even though you said your district didn't change all that much, did your relations with your constituents change at all once you were in a redistricted or redrawn district?
You know, it really did not at all. It stayed the same. What Lou said a while ago, I have that happen every single day. People say, well, how's everything in Washington, D.C.? Well, I still travel to Washington regularly, so I just say, yeah, we're doing fine. You know? and then they might ask me about legislation. I respond to it. I got tired and weary of saying I'm not there anymore, and I've been gone about 10 years. I do sneak out. I do sneak in occasionally. Oh, by the way, we did have a balanced budget when I was there, because I was on the budget committee. And matter of fact, we even had a plan, moving on a plan to what do we do with the surpluses, and can we pay off all of our national debt to have such a plan? And then to see a $15 trillion debt and $1.3 trillion deficits, it hurts.
That's such a fascinating insight. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a wonderful discussion. I've been speaking with Congressman Lou Frey, who represented Central Florida from 1969 to 1979, and Democrat Bob Clement, who represented Nashville and the greater Nashville region from 1988 to 2003. I'm Dr. Terry Susan Fine, and this has been the Civics Connection.